the 101 things to do with kale on a rainy day with your partner. I think it's next door. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to be having kale in this particular cooking class. So, I'm here to corrupt you a little bit. So we'll be having things that, have a few, things that are a little more processed. We'll be processing in our blender, in our food processor. We'll be making things that are somewhat whole foods, and then we'll be smearing it on some bagels. So I've got a bunch of little bagels here. We're going to make green cheese today. I'm Miyoko. So I'm the author of this recently published book, Artisan Vegan Cheese, which is available at the booth outside there. We'll be selling it here in the class at the very end, but this is a raffle copy. So someone here will be a lucky winner, and all you have to do is sign this piece of paper with your email address, and then we are going to have a blind selection of a name, and one of you can be a winner. So I'm just going to get this passed around. And I know some of you may or may not have seen the article in Veg News magazine. Anybody see that? So this is my article, not my photos. Absolutely stunning photographs done by a woman named Vanessa Reese in New York City. But these are cheeses that are slightly different from the ones in my cookbook. I have to admit, because I have people writing to me saying, the buffalo mozzarella is not the same as the one in your book. And why is that? Well, because I'm always making more and more and experimenting. I'm constantly developing new recipes, some of which are better and some of which are just different, or they're easier. So actually the buffalo mozzarella in this article is actually an improvement to the one that's in my book, except with the caveat that I've got now 3 buffalo mozzarellas. So this one's really good for caprese salad. And then I have one in my book that's a meltable mozzarella, which is the choice for pizza or lasagna or whatever. So anyway, you can probably still order a copy of that if you don't have it. And if you like some of the cheeses here and you want to really just test the full array of vegan cheeses, I'll probably have I have a book launch party on October 20th, and I'll have a huge display of cheeses and lots of cheesy appetizers and cheesy personalities. Anyway, so without much ado,
where's your
so I've got these. You can pass these around as well too. Yeah, there's a stack there, and go ahead and pass these here. And if you get my book, you can always email me. I'm very accessible, and I'm happy to answer your questions and help you out. I've got this one lady from down under. Is that what you say? Down? Is that? Or okay? She writes to me like twice a week. Seriously, with little updates and tips and questions anyway. So feel free to do that. I'm happy to answer your questions if I can. But anyway, today we're going to make 2 really, really simple cheeses, because obviously we don't have time to culture cheeses here. So I've already got one culture, but we're going to make 2 things that I think everybody, should be part of their repertoire. One is just a cream cheese. Now I know there's lots and lots of commercially available vegan cream cheese on the market today, but if you read the ingredients, most of them start out with some sort of oil, oftentimes palm oil, and then some stabilizers and soy protein. I just wouldn't call that a whole food. So we're going to make a whole foods-based cream cheese that takes about 3 minutes to make, and then you have to wait for about 2 or 3 days before it's ready, depending on the weather, okay, if you can wait that long. But I guarantee you, it's the easiest thing in the world. So we're going to start making we're going to make the cream cheese, and I've already got it made up. And then with the cream cheese, we're going to flavor it. We're going to do a sun-dried tomato garlic, and we'll do a lox and bagel. Lox, is that right? Yeah, we're going to make vegan lox. So we're going to start out by using soaked cashew nuts. Now, depending on the kind of blender you have, I have a high-speed blend tech, which I absolutely love. Square sides makes it really easy to clean, doesn't have the crevices that the Vitamixer has, but I also have that as well too. Depending on the type of blender you have, you want to soak your cashews for 3 hours to 8 hours. So if you've got a really high-speed blender, you want to minimize the amount of water that the cashews are soaking. But if you have a regular blender, go ahead and soak them for a little bit longer because it'll make it easier to puree. And you don't want to have, a grainy cream cheese. You want something that's really silky and smooth on your tongue. So I've gone ahead and soaked some cashews for about 3 hours. And we're going to take 2 cups of this. Now, of course, they've absorbed a little bit of water, so 2 even cups is really, slightly rounded at this point. So we're going to go ahead and put 2 cups of cashews. And by the way, these are raw, organic cashews. So don't get roasted, don't get, the one with tamari flavor on it, unless you want tamari flavored cream cheese. Just plain old, regular cashews. Now, this is extremely easy. To this cashew, to the cashews in the pan, let me find it's not a pan, it's a blender. We're going to add a ½ cup of water, okay? Now, in order to get this to culture, like all the other cheeses in my book, they're all cultured. And some of them take 2 days like this one, and some of them take several weeks. Now, recently I was cleaning out my refrigerator and I found this jar. I mean, I've got a few science experiments in my refrigerator. I don't know about you guys, but I do. And I'm in the back there and I find this jar of this Parmesan cheese I made a year ago. So I put it into some risotto and it really, it just improved. My husband thought it was real Parmesan cheese. It just developed this richness. So the whole idea behind this book is that you can make these cheeses and then they just get better and better and better over time. But this one's really fast. It only takes 2 days of waiting. So I've got the 2 cups of cashews, a ½ cup of water, and now I'm going to add to it some soy yogurt. So this is whole soy. I have cashew cream cheese in the containers now, but this was whole soy yogurt. And you're just going to add about 2 tablespoons of soy yogurt, and that's all you need to do to get the cheese to culture. So it's very, very simple. So now we're just going to puree that.
Miyoko?
Yes?
Do you ever use like the almond yogurt or coconut yogurt? Does it have to be soy?
No, it does not. You just need some sort of cultured product to get it sweet. Now, I use different cultures, but for the cream cheese, I find that the yogurt works the best. It gives it this really wonderful sweetness that's akin to cream cheese. And I don't get that with for the next cheese we're going to make a fondue, and we're going to be using Rejuvelac for that. So there are a couple of probiotics that I use in my book. All right, let me get this started. I'm going to turn this on. Automatically after 50 seconds, so you don't have to do anything. And then you just want to kind of stir it and make sure, with this high-speed machine, about 50 seconds is really all you need. Occasionally, I look down at it to see whether or not, there's any granules of cashews left in it, and if so, then I just kind of run it again for a few more seconds. Just gonna let it go for a few more seconds. Alright, so that was another 20 seconds, and now it looks pretty darn creamy. But as you can see, it's, this does not look like cream cheese. It just looks like pureed, very thick pureed cashews, or sour cream. Maybe it looks like sour cream. Because we just made it, and it needs about 2 to 3 days of culturing before it will turn into cream cheese. Now, the culture, what does that mean? It simply means you just set it somewhere on your counter, on your kitchen counter. And as long as it's, you don't have a heat wave where it's 110 degrees outside, it should be just fine. Now, how long do you know? How do you know when it's ready? You taste it. It might be one day in someone's kitchen, it might be 2 days in another person's kitchen, it might be 3 days, and it depends on the ambient temperature. You know, the season, the humidity, how warm it is, etc. And so there's really no general rule to, you know, I can't say it's going to be exactly 48 hours. It really, really depends. So you have to be patient, and you simply just kind of make it and then just set it. I'm going to steal a line from you. Set it and forget it. That's from Chef AJ back there on Processed. She's another great chef and cookbook author.
Do you ever use guar gum to thicken or anything else?
Well,
like
you do. I mean, I do occasionally, but you don't need to, because let me just show you what it looks like after 2 days. It really, really gets thick like this. So, here. I mean, if you just pack it back in there, I can turn it upside down. It's not going to come out because it's now like, it's as thick as Philadelphia cream cheese. It's really, really thick. And you can use this to make anything. You can bake it and you can make cheesecake out of it. You know, you can make cannolis. I've got recipes for cheesecake in my book. I've got recipes for making cannolis, or you can make a savory treat. You know, you can make little pastries, you know, mushrooms, sauteed mushrooms, or spinach, or whatever it makes, spanakopita, whatever. It's just very, very easy. You see how easy it was to make. You just have to be patient. Now, we're going to flavor that. I've got, I think this is going to, now, you know what, I'm just going to unplug it, because it's just going to be easier to do this. I'm not bending over. I know Chef AJ had her food processor under the table over there, but I'm not going to go there. So, all right. So now we're going to flavor this just to make it a little more exciting. So I've got 2 batches here, and I'm going to. This is really, really easy. I'm just going to stick this in here, and we're going to make 2 flavors, as I mentioned. One will be garlic, sun-dried tomato, and so let's start out with the garlic here. You know, I had this I was teaching for Dr. McDougall last week, and someone saw this and said, "Is that one of your cheeses? Does anyone know what this is?" It's a rock. This is my garlic rock. This is my garlic rock, and it's a little. Whoa, there we go. There goes an errant piece of garlic. But this is I learned this from this Filipino lady, because I was crushing my garlic with a knife, and she goes, "Oh, in the Philippines we just use a rock." And she went over to her refrigerator and pulled this rock off. I bet, you know, and she just it really works. You just kind of go like that, and there they go. And if you're really frustrated, it's a good way to take your frustration. So, but she, you know. So it really works. So I've got a few of these now. You got to find one that fits your hand like this, and so you don't, smash your fingers. If it's too small, you can end up smashing. You'll get a little finger in along with your garlic. And then you want to make sure that it's flat like this. So you just go down to the river and get one. So make sure you do that by next week. All right. So we're going to get the garlic. Just throw that in there, and. Of course, I don't have a garbage can or anything. And you can make this as garlicky as you like. I'll try to exercise self-restraint, because I tend to overdo it on the garlic. And then we're going to put some sun-dried tomatoes. Now, these are the oil-packed ones, and what I like to do is usually, if I use these oil-packed ones, is squeeze out the oil as much as I can. But I don't have a sink, so I'm trying to figure out how I can maneuver this. Okay. So I'm going to have really oily hands after this. Anyone have a food service glove around here now? I guess not. Is there one in there? Then I won't get my hands all greasy. In the meantime, we'll get a little bit of sea salt in here. And so now you can flavor this in so many different ways. I've got several suggestions in this Veg News article for flavoring it. There's like a maple walnut one, and I can't remember what else is in there. You can also put basil in here as well too. But thank you. We're just going to keep it really simple by just putting sun-dried tomatoes and garlic. And then they're going to start smearing it on the bagels. God, it's funny. Every time I think about bagels, I don't eat bagels a lot. But back in 1974, when I first went to college in Brooklyn, New York, they really, I'm from here. They didn't have bagels out here. Do you remember bagels out here back in 19? No. I mean, there really weren't bagels. So I went to New York, And Nancy, that was her name. She was a friend of mine. And she said, on a Sunday morning, yeah, we always go out for coffee and bagels. And I'm like, well, I know what coffee is, but what are bagels? So we went out and we had, bagels and cream cheese, and they had lox. I was a vegetarian already. So it's funny, every time I eat bagels, I think about Nancy. I think about her in another context too, because one day she was laughing, and she was talking about all the Japs. And I said, ooh, I haven't heard that expression since I first moved to this country. That's kind of derogatory. She laughed. Does anyone know what that means? Jewish American princess. So I always say I have a lot in common with the Jews, So here we go. So I learned a lot from Nancy, all about bagels and Japs. So, okay, I'm just squeezing this. Now, if you only have oil packed and you want to get rid of the oil, or as much as you can, what you can do, because I'm lazy, sometimes I don't like to reconstitute, is you can boil some water and then put the sun-dried tomatoes in a colander and then just pour the boiling water over it, and that will extract a lot of oil as well too, so you don't end up with an oily mess.
How about just dried ones?
Dried ones, you soak it, and then that works perfectly if you remember to do that. Or you squeeze it out too, so they're not waterlogged. Otherwise, because you're going to have a runny cream cheese if you do that. I think that's probably enough. I'll just keep that in case I have to do some more squeezing. Okay, let me just puree that, and then we'll give it a taste, and then we'll start smearing.
Can you do that in a blender too?
You don't want to do this you could do it in a blender. I need the blender to make the Gruyere fondue, and I don't want to, contaminate it with all these other seasonings. So I'm not going to do that, but...
You brought the liquid smoke.
No, that's for the lox.
This is
I'm making sun-dried tomato garlic. That's my daughter, and she's my sous chef, so she's telling me what to do here. Yes?
Like a salmon log? If you had like sun-dried tomato, the dried version that was soaked in oil, could you put it right at the beginning before you let it ferment?
I have never tried that, and I don't know whether or not. So we're talking about before you reconstitute the sun-dried tomato, or you would reconstitute them.
Or just put in like chopped up dried sun-dried tomatoes before you leave it to ferment.
You could definitely try doing that. I don't recommend doing garlic. Garlic has led to botulism when it's in an unoxidated state, when there's not enough oxygen. So you have to be really careful with garlic, so definitely not do that with garlic. I don't know, but I've never tried that with sun-dried tomatoes. Oftentimes, there's certain things that respond to cultures better than others, and you certainly don't want to introduce extra liquid in there that could potentially lead to molding. So you want to minimize the liquid as much as possible. So look at that beautiful thick cream cheese. I'm going to just take a little taste and see if I have enough garlic in there. That's the most important part. Do we have enough? Have you had your garlic today? Yes.
So when you leave it out to culture,
Yes.
is it warmer weather will culture faster?
Absolutely. Warmer weather will culture faster. So you do not want to, I think actually it tastes pretty good, and the salt, I'm not going to add any more salt to it. It's got a nice balance of the sun-dried tomato, the garlic, and I need a container to put it in. Yeah, we'll just use those. And then they're going to start smearing it, and then we're going to make the lox. So warmer weather will definitely culture it faster. So if you've got a warm house, this might just take 24 to 36 hours. In most like San Francisco type weather, it really takes at least 2 days. I would say 48 to, what's 48 plus 12? 60 hours, something like that. There was a blogger who just made this cream cheese, and she said she checked it after 12 hours and didn't smell like cream cheese. Another 12 hours, it didn't smell like cream cheese. Another 12 hours, it had the smell of cream cheese and it was ready. So it took her 36 hours. So it really depends on, where you are. I cannot give you an exact formula. It's not what it is.
What if you just put it in a thermos?
Well, you could try that. I have never tried that. It might be hard to get out of the things. But that, you could try that. I actually want to be able to eat it, so, it takes about 48 hours for me. It depends on how impatient you are. I'm getting these messages and there's like this forum on my book and on Post Punk Kitchen, and there's this thread, about it, and people are saying, I have to wait 2 weeks for this, but I've already eaten half of it. Cheese isn't ready, but they're still eating it, so anyway. Okay, so I can't get this completely clean. So you might have a little bit of sun-dried tomato flavor in your lox. So we're gonna go ahead and make that as well too. Can I put this down right here? Okay. Wipe my hands here. All right, so now I've got some more cream cheese in another container. And we're gonna make lox with that. Which, by the way, I've never had, so I don't really know what it tastes like. But, the gals at Veggie said it tasted like lox. So, all right, so I'm gonna add the rest of this cream cheese here. So I've got an empty container that we can reuse. Get it all out. And as you can see, it's really, really thick. And some of the cream cheeses that are commercial, if you leave them at room temperature, they get kind of soft because they're not cultured. This is just thick. And it's a whole food. This one doesn't have any added oils. It's just cashews, water, and a little bit of yogurt as a starter. Now, I do have a recipe in my book for making your own yogurt, and I really recommend it. Get yourself some yogurt to start commercially, and then you can make your own at home, and you can just keep using your own yogurt as the starter for the next batch. I met somebody who had a starter, who'd had a batch of yogurt where the starter had started 20 years ago. Her grandmother or somebody had it. It's just been going through the generations. So it's kind of like sourdough. All right, to make the lox, we're gonna add some red bell pepper, which will give it kind of a red color, like lox, and give it that sort of pinkish sheen. And so I've got a couple of red bell peppers here. I'm just gonna throw it in here because it's all gonna get, I'll chop it up a little bit. Why not? So these are roasted red bell peppers. To roast peppers, if you've never done it before, it's really easy. There's lots of ways to do it. You can put it in about a 425, 450 degree hot oven for about 20 minutes or so until it's nice and charred. And then to make it easy to remove the skin, you can pop it into a paper bag or a bowl and cover it with a lid and let it steam, and then the skin comes right off. Or you can put it over a stove, a flame, or a barbecue grill and just keep turning it until it's charred. Or you can just buy a jar of pimentos and then it's done. So you don't have to bother doing any of that. So, there's lots of ways of roasting a pepper there. Okay, so I got the roasted bell peppers in there. Now I want to give it that sort of fishy flavor. So because I'm Japanese, I've got nori. Everyone's familiar with nori, right? No, this is a Japanese, it's a seaweed that you have on sushi, of course. And we're just going to tear it up, and the way you do it, Japanese style, the way my mother taught me was you fold it up and, oh God, she would be really upset that this wasn't perfect, But she would sit there, was a whole art to folding your nori and tearing it ever so precisely, but I can't be bothered. So. And it really doesn't matter for this purpose. So I'm making about twice the recipe. So for a 1 cup recipe, you would put in about 2 sheets of nori. And I got probably more than 2 cups, so we'll add a little bit more than that in there. Are there enough bagels to go around?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, how do you like that?
So good. It's so good.
It tastes like cream cheese, right? Yeah. Because by the way, if you have teens, I've got 2 teens and 1 former teen, because He's now in his 20s, but they all love it, and their friends like the cream cheese too. So it's something that you can serve kids and just put it on their bagel. They won't know. Yes.
You need to refrigerate this after it's cultured?
You do need to refrigerate it. If you don't refrigerate it, at some point it's going to get not only tangy but moldy and go bad, like all foods. Okay, so I've got not the lox, what is it called? Do you mind talking for me? The red bell pepper, the nori, and then to give it a smoky flavor that lox has, we have a little bit of liquid smoke. So we're going to add just a little bit of that. Just a few drops is all you need, okay? And then of course we need a little bit of salt. So I've got some Himalayan salt here. And all right, so now we're just going to give this a whiz.
How long does it last in refrigerator?
The cream cheese, it actually lasts a few weeks. Yeah. So, and you can also freeze it if you really want to, but I usually find lots of uses for this stuff, so it doesn't last that long. All right, turn that on. And you want to scrape down the sides because you don't want to have these big chunks of nori, So I'm going to just scrape.
Miyoko?
Yes.
Can you ever use a different nut than a cashew? I mean, I would, but I have a couple of people that are allergic to cashews. Could you use a blanched almond or a mac?
Yeah, you can use sunflower seeds, you can use macadamia, you can use almonds. You're going to get a different texture with almonds and macadamia nuts because they're much harder, as you know. And and they just don't puree quite as nicely as cashews because cashews are so much softer. So, but sunflower seeds also work. Now you get a slightly gray cheese, which isn't quite as attractive. But anyway, but yes, you can use all of
What
those.
about pine nuts? Because they're pretty soft.
Pine nuts are great, and I use them for certain cheeses. They have a very pronounced flavor, and it's fantastic in the Parmesan cheese that I have in the book. You want that sort of nutty flavor, but it's kind of overpowering for cream cheese. Yeah, but good question. Okay, so now it's nice and pink, and let's just give that a taste and see. It's beginning to taste fishy, but I'm going to use this last piece of nori. Just forget what my mom said.
So what if you were to soak the harder nuts in water overnight? That would
I'm sorry?
If you were to take the harder nuts like almonds but soak them in water overnight?
You would have to soak, if you have a harder nut like macadamias or almonds, you have to soak them longer. And they still will not puree absolutely smooth like this. And so, but that's okay. If you don't mind that, you don't mind a little texture, then it still works. I'm just going to add a little bit more of that, and then this will be ready to serve.
Have you tried to switch kelp or milk instead of
You can use kelp as well for this. I find that nori has a better flavor. I use a lot, because I'm Japanese, I use a lot of sea vegetables for different dishes. And for example, I make a bouillabaisse and I put wakame in that. I grind up the wakame. I make a wakame powder. I just find that, just like everything else, there's different flavors, and they have, they serve a different purpose. So the nori it has more of that, I don't know, salmon sort of, not that I would know, but I don't know.
What about capers?
Capers would be great. You could do that. I mean,
That's like
the world is your bagels. You can put anything you want on them. Seriously. Yeah, capers are wonderful. I love capers. Okay, so this is ready. The lox and cream cheese. And you can go ahead and have that. And then we are going to, let me just disconnect and reconnect, because we're going to now make Gruyere fondue. And I made this summer. We had, I've got 3 kids, and I have a 17-year-old who's in France right now. This is my youngest. She's 16. So we've done this exchange with this French family for the past few years, and they sent their kids to our house, and then our kids go over to their house. And so they had these 2 French boys over, and you know the French eat a lot of cheese, right? Can you imagine being dairy intolerant in France? So the oldest boy has a dairy allergy. He can't have dairy. And so he's never had cheese. Can you imagine this? Living in France and not being able to eat cheese? So, you know, he was so excited because he's always wanted to have cheese. So I made these cheeses for him, and we had fondue, and they were just, he was in heaven. They were, and the brother really liked it too. He's not dairy intolerant, so yes. Okay, so this is really easy, but we're going to start out with a different probiotic, and we're going to use Rejuvelac for this instead of yogurt, because it gives it a different flavor profile. They're both different probiotics, and they have a different flavor profile. Now, a lot of people ask me, can I just use a powdered probiotic? Well, you can, but I don't, and I don't for several reasons. One is that when I wrote the book and I was trying to figure out, okay, what probiotic do I want to use? I decided I wanted to use a probiotic that anybody, anywhere in the world would have access to. Now, these little bottles of probiotics cost $25, and oftentimes they're grown in a non-dairy culture. In a dairy culture, so they're not even vegan. And sometimes they go off, and then they don't work. Now, that's been my experience. You know, if you have it for too long, they don't work anymore. So I wanted to find a couple of different probiotics that, you know, yogurt's eaten the world over. Anybody can make yogurt. And then this is a probiotic drink that is manufactured here using wheat berries, but you can make this with any grain. And the easiest one you can make it with is quinoa, as long as it's not sprouted. Basically, you sprout the grain, and then you put some water in it, and you let it sit for about 3 days until it turns into Rejuvelac, and then you drain it from the grains. And then the grains are sprouted. You can eat them if you like, or do whatever. You put them in a bread or whatever. So you can make this anywhere in the world. It's really easy. You don't want to do it in 110-degree weather again. It's got to be, sort of cool environment, but it works, and it gives it a different flavor profile. And this doesn't make, for example, if I take the same cashews and I culture it with this, it ends up tasting like goat cheese. If I culture it with a yogurt, it tastes like the cream cheese you had. So even though all I've done is change the type of probiotic, you get a completely different flavor profile. I discovered that just by experimenting. And so that's why I use different probiotics in this. All right, now, so we're going to start again. I'm going to make 2 batches of this because I want to make sure there's enough fondue for everybody. And so I've got 4 cups of cashews here, and this can only handle, I don't know if I can do all of it, maybe I can do all. We'll see how powerful this machine really gets. Shall we do that? All right, so I'm doubling the recipe. So I've got 4 cups of soaked cashews. And I'm gonna need 1 cup of Rejuvelac, and I believe this is 1 cup. Okay, it's a little more than 1 cup. It says it's 8 fluid ounces, but it's a little more than 1 cup. You know, by the way, in one of my cooking classes, we're going to be diluting it anyway, so that's fine. That's compost. I can't put that in there. We actually did this. You know, I've noticed that people say, well, this didn't turn out, or that didn't turn out, whatever. And then I watch my students measure. And I always recommend when you measure, even if it's I don't care if it's liquid or if it's a non-liquid, a dry ingredient. I never use Pyrex. I never use a liquid measuring cup. I use these. And I actually had all my students measure, and then we compared their measurements, and there was a large discrepancy. And you have less of a discrepancy when you can see how far up you are on an exact measuring cup like this. On the Pyrex, if you're measuring a half a cup in a 2-cup measuring cup, you're kind of doing this thing like that, and it's just not accurate. So I really, really recommend just using these. Okay, these are for dry measurements, but I use them for liquid also. Now, in professional kitchens, like when I had my company now in Zen, we manufactured, you weighed everything. You weighed water. You never measured. You just weighed everything was weighed. But nobody wants to weigh. So if you don't want to weigh, then invest in just a cheap set of these. Okay. All right, back to my fondue. 2 cups. I've got double the recipe. 4 cups of soaked cashews.
You're on the cord a little bit. Just to make
I'm sorry?
the cord's on the
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you for noticing that. I got the Rejuvelac in here. Now I'm going to add a little bit of miso to it. And this is weird. We're making fondue out of Gruyere cheese. And this is, for some reason, this really tastes like Gruyere. I can't figure out why, but it just, this combination of ingredients. And we're going to use miso. And in my book, I say use a medium brown miso. Because there's all these misos on the market, and so here's one. This one is called mellow white miso. And someone says to me, why can't I just use mellow miso? Because this is mellow white, and this is mellow brown rice. And look at the difference in color. Okay, I mean, and this is much darker and saltier, and it just, I don't want this flavor. I just want a subtle cheese flavor that you get from the miso. So we're gonna just add this. How are the locks? You like that? I guess some of you have actually had lox, because I haven't. So does it taste remotely like cream cheese and lox? Good. Okay. All right. And so if you use the and that one, it's completely oil-free. So I've got the miso in there. We're adding about 2 tablespoons of miso each. And actually, I'm going to add a little bit less, just because I don't want to overdo it. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of sea salt because I'm doubling the recipe, and I'm actually going to measure the salt here.
Are all the recipes in your cookbook?
They are all in my cookbook. Yes, they're all. That's what I am promoting. And the book will be available for sale right after the. In fact, could you get there's 2 boxes right against the wall. Maybe bring them in here. Okay. So 2 teaspoons of salt. Now, I'm going to add some nutritional yeast, and I'm going to add, I think, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, if I remember my recipe correctly. So I'm doubling that. All right, and this recipe, most of the recipes in my cookbook, most of the cheeses do not have any oil, but this recipe actually does have oil. And I don't know why, but if I don't use this, it doesn't taste like Gruyere. I made it without it, and I just cannot get that culinary, that flavor profile. So, and the oil that I'm going to use for this is refined coconut oil. Do not use virgin coconut oil, or you will have coconut tasting cheese. So, this is something that, I don't eat fondue very often, but when I do, I have to look, does anyone have my book? I can't remember, is it a 1/4 cup of coconut oil or a 1/3 of a cup? Can someone just look that up really fast?
1/4 cup.
Is it a 1/4 cup? Thank you.
For one recipe.
For one recipe, so I'm going to add a 1/2 cup. So there's a 1/4. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to puree that. And actually, to make Gruyere cheese, this is all you would have to add. And then you let it sit, you culture overnight. Or for maybe for 2 days or so. And then there's a recipe for making it hard, so you can actually slice it. But it's also delicious right out of the blender as a soft Gruyere. So you could spread it on bread, or I have a little appetizer where you take a slice of pear, and you put it on a baguette, and then you put the cheese on top of that, and you bake it, and the cheese kind of gets puffy and brown, and then you make a little red wine reduction, and you put that over there, and it's kind of fancy schmancy. In fact, that brings me to another tale. That is the first episode of the new show, Vegan Mashup, which will air on KQED Life starting November 8th at 3:30. So, it's a new show that stars Tony Fiore, Terry Hope Romero, and yours truly. It's produced by Delicious TV that did Totally Vegetarian, a very successful show that ran on public television for 4 years. So it's a really, really fun show, and the idea is that it's a mashup. So there's always 3 regular chefs, the 3 of us on every show, and then we have guest chefs as well on various episodes. And one of them is sitting right back there, Chef AJ. She's So yeah, if you're in the Bay Area, be sure to tune in starting November 8th at 3:30 or send your DVR to that. If you're not in the Bay Area, call your local PBS provider and tell them that you'd like to see Vegan Mashup in their area. It's just being released now. It's syndicated. It's carried by all the public television distributors, so any public television station has access to it. So be sure to let them know. Okay, back to the Gruyere. So as a reminder, got the cashews, the Rejuvelac, the coconut oil, the nutritional yeast, the miso, the sea salt, and now we're going to blend it. Okay, well, 4 cups is a lot for this machine. So I think I'm going to either take, I have another idea. We're actually going to be diluting this with, so this is from the nice people over at Vegan Vine. And all fondue has wine in it. So I'll just try diluting it with this and see if that gives it, it'll be more like a smoothie consistency. So basically, this is how you make the Gruyere, just like that. And then, you can let it culture overnight. It'll get thicker in a day or so. And then if you want to make it hard, you can add agar to it, and there's a way that tells you how to do that in my book. If you want to make fondue, as we're going to do, we're going to add wine. Now, you can also make an Alfredo sauce with this, which is fantastic. And all you have to do, well, there they go, is to add some water to this. So you can cook up your pasta. If you're doing a cooked pasta, and take your hot pasta water and dilute this with the hot pasta water. And it's the most luscious Alfredo sauce you'll ever have. It tastes just like cheese. It's not like a tofu Alfredo sauce. If you want to make it a raw Alfredo sauce with like zucchini pasta, then all you have to do is dilute with some water, and then it's all raw. So either way, you can make an Alfredo sauce, but today we're making fondue. So let me add. It would be 2 cups of wine, but let me. Do I hear anybody complaining? I told you that the kale demo is next door. So. All right, nobody left, so I guess you guys are all game. So. Okay.
Is there another oil you could use other than coconut oil? No.
It just doesn't. I'm telling you, this is the only oil that makes it taste like Gruyere cheese. I don't know why. I think it's got even though they refine it, it has a hint of coconut, and just that just that amount makes it, for some reason, taste like a Swiss cheese. It's really bizarre, but yeah. Most of my cheeses, as I mentioned, do not have oil. The only ones that do are the ones that are in the meltable chapter. So in order for a cheese to melt, I have to add oil to get it to melt and stretch and all of that. And this is one of the ones that's not in the meltable chapter that does have oil, and only because it's the only way I can get it to taste that way. So I will make that sacrifice for culinary purposes occasionally. So. I'm a bad girl, so. So now, this is nice and creamy and smooth. And now what we're going to do is cook it. So it's nice and warm. And then we're going to...
Your cord.
Oh, okay. All right. It's actually not plugged in yet. So it's fine, but I will plug it in. But thank you for pointing that out. So what we're going to do now is cook this briefly. And then we're going to thicken it with a little bit of tapioca, which will give it kind of a stretchy consistency as well too. So it'll be really, really like cheese. And then I've got some more white bread cut up for you to dip in here. I've got some baguettes cut up. But, you know, if you want it at home, this could be a meal if you had, for example, some steamed broccoli and roasted potatoes and some, you know, mushrooms are fantastic dipped in here. So you can dip all kinds of things. You're not stuck just dipping bread. But that's what we have today. So, okay, let me figure out the cord situation here. Here.
I just want to clarify.
Okay, yeah.
If you're going to make your gruyere or the Alfredo sauce, then you don't culture it. You just culture it and you just want a different.
Yeah, if you're making the Alfredo or the Gruyere, you can make it right there on the spot.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm doing it in this demo, because I'm not sure you guys want to, I did bring some sleeping bags for you. I just figured you didn't want to stay for the next few days here until my cheeses are ready. So, I mean, I have, you know, people are having trouble waiting enough. I mean, everyone's into instant food. But as you can see, this stuff really is somewhat instant in that it really doesn't require much hands-on time at all. It's really, really fast, but you really have to wait. So,
But you could culture it if you wanted to.
if you wanted to culture it, it deepens in flavor. Because Gruyere is not a really sharp cheese, and you don't want much of a tang or sharpness to it, you don't culture it for very long, maybe 24 hours. 12 to 24 hours is really all you need to do. I had another spoon around here somewhere. So this is going to take a few minutes. Is that form still going around with the email addresses and all of that?
She brought it up.
Is it up here somewhere?
Yeah.
The email addresses
Oh, it's
and
right
the
here.
book and all of that? Yes. Oh, okay, let me have that here. Did everyone sign that if you want to be part of the raffle? No.
Some back here.
Okay, so yeah, if you want to be part of the raffle for the book, the book giveaway, then sign up. And don't be afraid, because I send out an email blast once every 6 months, whether I need to or not. So you will probably rarely hear from me. But anyway.
Could you tell us a little bit about cheddar?
Yes. So there's several cheddars in my book. There is a sharp cheddar in my book that tastes better 4 months after you make it. Literally, it just tastes so good if you just let it sit in the refrigerator for 4 months or so. I mean, if you can just, yeah. And so when you first make it, it actually is a little bit soft. I mean, it's more like cheddar on a hot day, you know, left out in the sun. You know how it gets kind of soft and mushy. But if you let it age for 4 months or so in the refrigerator, it gets nice and hard and sliceable, and it just develops that complexity and that deepness. If you can be that patient. So there's another one called air-dried cheddar. So that one you can enjoy in less time. And that involves making the cheese, and then you let it air dry. It takes about a week or so at room temperature. And that one is sliceable much faster than that. And then there's a recipe for a meltable cheddar, so I know it's complicated. I haven't figured out that one recipe that will do all of the things that I wanted to do. So unfortunately, there's 3 different cheddar recipes in there. There's the meltable cheddar that's great for, grilled cheese sandwiches or mac and cheese or whatever, or melting on top of a casserole or whatever you want to do. Is that working? Yes, it is. So yeah, there's 3 different cheddars in there. But the sharp cheddar is the one that I would put out on a cheese platter. Oh, actually there's one more. There's some pub cheddar that has beer and chives in it. That one's really good too. I just made a whole bunch for the IVU reception tomorrow. So.
And also
Yeah.
nutritional yeast, what's its role in some of your cheese?
Well, nutritional yeast does give it a slightly cheesy flavor. I mean, obviously if I just took raw cashews or raw almonds or just nuts and did nothing but culture those, I would be limited in the range of flavors I could achieve. So I've just tweaked a lot of these recipes that were, based on what the raw foodists have been doing for a long time, and I've just added a little bit more to it. And some of them involve cooking, so they're not all raw. So the cream cheese is obviously raw, but for example, the air-dried cheddar requires a little bit of cooking. which is what they do in regular cheese making too. And that actually changes the flavor profile again. So by just adopting a bunch of different techniques, I was able to sort of achieve all these different flavor profiles and textures and things. So we're just going to cook this for a minute.
You tried putting kirsch in the fondue?
You would definitely want to put kirsch in the fondue at the very end if you happen to have a bottle of kirsch around. Yes, absolutely. I have no problem with kirsch pasta. Yeah. This is going to take a few minutes there. And for those of you who got here later, I know there's some cards that we're going around too. I have a book launch party coming up on October 20th. I don't know where those postcards, and maybe they're out. There's some more, or pass those around. A book launch party on October 20th in San Francisco, downtown. If you want to come, you can get a ticket online at Brown Paper Tickets. It's $10, but you'll have the feast. It covers all food and wine. You'll have tons, all these varieties of cheeses, as well as cheesy appetizers, as I mentioned earlier. So lots of really great things there, and music and wine. So this will take a minute. How are we doing on time? I just want to make sure I'm not
You have 8
going
more
over.
minutes.
I'm sorry?
8 more minutes.
8 more minutes. Okay, this has to be ready in 8 minutes. Trying to get this. Yeah.
Are you going to sing at your book launch party?
I wasn't planning to. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. I don't know how Dixie manages to talk me into all these things. It was funny. I did sing this morning with the Turning Point, the jazz group here, and I made a bad joke at the end. I said, we were actually supposed to be at Strictly Hardly Bluegrass, or Hardly Strictly Bluegrass, but we turned it out for Veg Fest. And a really nice lady came up to me and said, "I'm so glad you turned them down." That just about made my day. Yes, Joelle.
When I bought soy yogurt in the past, there's been times where, like, if I don't use it within 2 weeks, it starts molding.
Yeah.
What prevents, how do you know the line when you're aging?
When you're aging, that's a really, really good question. And unfortunately, there isn't a hard and fast science about it. You really have to watch your cheeses really well. So for example, I have recommendations in my book for aging, and I got a lot of these hints from reading real cheese books on how to make cheese. And so you salt the outside of the cheese, which helps inhibit bacterial growth. I also did a blog post on it recently because I've also discovered that you can brush a little vino on the outside of your cheese. I was making a port wine cheddar once, which is not in my book, but I took some of my cheddar and I soaked it in port wine for, I don't know, a couple of weeks to see whether or not I could get that port wine flavor. And while that didn't succeed, that cheddar kept in my refrigerator for months. And I'm not even talking about 4 months. It was like, 6, 7, 8 months later, I found it there and it was still, I tasted it, it was delicious. So that wine also helps to inhibit growth. Any kind of alcohol, any kind of salt, all those things that are really good for you help inhibit mold. They must be good for you because they inhibit mold, right? Because mold ain't good for you, so.
But isn't regular cheese made from mold?
There are molds that are edible, yes. Yeah. They're like blue cheese and camembert, brie, they all have some sort of white mold grown on them. So there are definitely edible molds. I'm just not sure that common garden variety green mold that, grows. I don't know if you want to eat that, this is this just has to get hot, and it's getting there. So give me a couple more minutes, and this would you have another clean spoon around here so I can kind of see where we are on this? Now what we want to do is take some tapioca, as I mentioned. You know, I'm just a really forgetful person, so of course I forgot to bring tapioca. And Joelle, who was assisting me, happened to have a scooter in San Francisco. So she ran to the store and got me some tapioca, which is great. Now, why am I using tapioca to thicken this? Because tapioca gives it a stretchy consistency that you cannot get with cornstarch or arrowroot or some of the other starches. It's tapioca, which is why tapioca is used in a lot of the vegan cheese. So you can dilute this with a little bit of water, or you can be a bad girl and dilute it with a little bit of water. Either way, it works. Oh, some chopsticks. There we go. Get back to my roots here. Okay. So I'm just going to stir this here. A little bit of tapioca.
Is it tapioca flour?
It's just tapioca flour, yes. Yes, not tapioca. Yeah, I taught a cooking intensive, and one of my recipes, I just wrote tapioca. That was not very good. And one of my students said, well, the pearls never melted. That was entirely my fault, because I went back and checked, and it did say tapioca, and I do not blame her for using that, so that was my fault entirely. I'm just going to taste, ew, here's a little spoon. I had the yogurt on. I'm going to taste that. It tastes really good, but it's not hot. And unfortunately, it's got to get really hot. What happens when you heat this is that it changes the consistency, the texture from creamy to sort of, you know how cheese, when you melt, it's kind of oily and shiny? So when you cook this, it changes from this creamy consistency to this slightly more, cheesy-like, sort of stretchy, oily type of thing. So that's why we need to cook it. And I'm going to turn this heat up. And I'm going to hopefully I'm not going to burn it.
Can you serve it in a fondue pot?
You can, that's why I brought this. This is my fondue pot. No, I'm joking, but once you make this, what you want to do is serve it in a double boiler or a fondue pot. You really need to have heat underneath it, or as it cools, it solidifies and gets hard. And you don't want that. So if you don't have a fondue pot, most people don't anymore, put the cheese in a bowl like this, and then put some hot water in your pot, and then just keep it hot that way. And then you can, it doesn't look as pretty, but you can put it out at a table and have, little skewers. See, I've got the little skewers there with bread on it. And you can serve it that way. I'm going to just add the rest of that because I need this. No, I don't. Come on, get hot, please. Of course, if I had a lid, I could put a lid on top of here, and that would heat it up a little bit faster. But in the meantime, are there any other questions that I can answer? Because it's almost ready. Yes.
Yeah, Roquefort in your book.
A what?
Roquefort.
I do not have I did have a Roquefort, and I pulled it from the book towards the end because I just wasn't satisfied with it. But since then, I have developed a Cambozola, which is like a brie with a blue cheese flavor. I don't have that crumbly texture perfected, but I have the brie, and I will be serving that tomorrow at the IBU reception, as well as at my book launch party, so if you want to taste that. And that will be in the next edition of Artisan Vegan Cheese. Oh, come on. I am thinking, was Andrew here from book publishing? He was here a second ago.
Oh, he's out there.
Oh, he's out there. I'm just thinking that, is there another demo after me?
Yes.
There is, okay. I just to be conscientious of the next person, I'm thinking maybe there's a table out there, right? Maybe we should do the book signing out there, just so that I can, if people would like to buy a book, they are available. They will be available for sale back there, and you will get an autograph, of course. Okay, oh my God. It's beginning to boil, yes. So it's going to be ready in a minute. And I'm going to go ahead and put, unfortunately tapioca won't thicken if it's not hot. This has to be really hot and has to boil for this to thicken and get kind of that gooey texture. That's the word I want. I want it to be gooey. So it's creamy now, but we want it to be gooey. So I'm going to go ahead and add, I don't think I added quite 2 cups. All right, so now I'm going to add my tapioca flour to this.
horror stories?
Any horror stories? Oh my God, yes, I mean, I've had lots of, I just made a whole bunch of Gouda, air-dried Gouda. And I found this room in my house that has the coolest temperatures, this little changing room. So I went to Chicago last week for Chicago Vegan Mania, and you know, the Gouda's there, it's good for 5-6 days at room temperature, that's how long it takes. So I salted it and wined it and everything and left it in there, and I came back and we'd had that heat wave last week. And they were all moldy. It was like, you know, it had gotten to be, because we live in San Anselmo, and it's 20 degrees warmer there, so you know, it's like 100 degrees there every day. So yeah, it's unfortunately, ideally, you'd want to have a cheesecake, right? Do you have one in your backyard? I mean, no? Okay, one. Or, you know, or whatever, a wine refrigerator would be good. Like 55 degrees is ideal. Most people don't have that, so just find the coolest spot in your house. It could be the cellar or the basement, just, you know, some dark corner, somewhere where there isn't a lot of temperature fluctuation, and then that works. So, this is, now you want to make sure when you put the tapioca in it that you cook it completely. If you don't cook it until the cheese is nice and shiny, the tapioca, it means the tapioca has not been cooked fully, the starch, it has not been cooked fully, and it's going to taste starchy. It's not going to taste satiny and smooth. So, there, we need to cook it for another minute, and then I think what we're going to do, because it's going to be hard to serve, and I need to get out of here for the next person, and I swore I'm making really easy things, and they are easy, I just talk too much, I just react too much, so that was the problem here, is I think maybe we'll do, I'll pour it into 2 different containers, and it might just be easier for people to just grab a skewer and dip, like you would with real fondue, rather than trying to portion it out, you know what I mean? So it's now beginning to look nice and shiny. It's a little thick. I think I had a little bit too much of the tapioca, so I'm going to thin it out a little. I'll be nice, okay? I'm going to get you guys too drunk. I'm just going to dilute a little bit of water. But what you can do is, you know, if it comes out a little bit too thick, you can add a little bit more wine, a little bit more water. It is bubbling away now, and I think this is ready. And let's do the book. Where is the piece of paper, the raffle thing? So we can do the Okay, so now I'm going to let you be the decider. What we're going to do is take these 2 pieces of paper, 3 pieces of paper. We're going to come over here, and we're going to line them up like this. And you're going to take a knife, not a knife, this thing here. We're going to turn you around 3 times. And you're just going to take a finger and you're going to just put your finger down blindfolded. I'll run the names, okay? 1, 2, 3, down. Okay. It looks like Jeremiah Birnbaum. So.
Fun.
Yeah, so I don't know where the book is.
Hey, wait a second.
We'll take a copy of the book, so when we find it, it's over there. It's floating around over there. Okay, and this is ready. I think I had a little bit too much tapioca, so it's kind of thick, but it'll, you know what that means? It means it won't fall off of your bread. So, if we had more time, we would get it to be the perfect consistency. That's for Jeremiah, who's sitting right over there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and I'm going to just do this. And what I'd like to do is have you guys come up and grab a skewer and do some dipping.